Top 10 worst NFL draft picks. Number 1 overall. Number 10, Sam Bradford. I think, yes, I'm going to put him very low. Yes, I know he's not a bust. He really isn't a terrible bust. He just, from all the hype surrounding him, I feel like, from all the, he's going to do unbelievable, and, he's going to be that guy, and, then in 2010, they drafted him number 1 overall, and part of the Rams. You're expecting him to have a pretty good career. A better career than what he's had so far, and you're looking at what he's been able to do since entering the league. I mean, he didn't even play in 2014. He played from 2010 to 2013 with the St. Louis Rams. He had a year where he had over 3,000 passing yards, 2 years, but at the same time, interception-wise, it wasn't that great. He did throw interceptions. He would overthrow. He would underthrow. Not great. Obviously there's factors like the line and stuff like that, but still, you got to be a good QB, and he would get his chance again as a Philadelphia Eagle, and he would lead him to a 7-7 record under his leadership. 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, almost 4,000 passing yards. And then he did a really, really good job as a Minnesota Viking. So far, with almost 4,000, he had 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year, led him to a 7-8 record. The only thing is the fact that he's been doing really well. Yes, he throws the ball. You can see he can throw the ball. You can see he can throw touchdowns, and he can throw interceptions. And he has the ability of being a special talent. Of course, it's just the hype surrounding him ever since coming into the league was he's going to be the man. He's going to be the man. He's going to be the man, and so much hype around him in Oklahoma. His last season wasn't the best, but people knew he was going to be good. He was going to be special, but right now he just hasn't had that transition to actually become that, because honestly, when you're almost 30 and haven't been in the playoffs yet, you haven't, like I said, he hasn't been in the playoffs yet, hasn't been able to lead a team into that area. It's kind of hard to put you as not a draft bust in a way. And like I said, that's why I'm getting in number 10, because he has been pretty good for the most part in his career. When he's gotten the ball, he actually can play, but he hasn't been in the playoffs yet, hasn't led that team to that standard. So he's, it's kind of unfortunate, but putting him up there, I mean, it makes sense. Number 9, Tim Couch. So Tim Couch is going to be on this list at number 9 because the others have, for the most part, not made the list due to, or made the list higher because of either they just could not play or just injuries and stuff like that. And for Tim Couch, his reasoning was he just couldn't last in the NFL for more than 5 years. Honestly, they drafted him first overall in '99, and quite honestly, people thought he had a really bright future coming out of Kentucky, and he just couldn't last. He really could not last as an NFL quarterback. He just wasn't that type of player. I mean, you could look at getting drafted, 99. He plays most of the season, but 15 touchdowns, 13 receptions, not even 3,000 yards, not great. Leads him to a 2-12 record. The next year he starts 7 games. He leads him to 2-5 record. The next year he plays all 16 games. He gets into a 7-9 record, but still no playoffs. Throws more interceptions than touchdowns. Then he throws 14. He goes through 14. He gets into an 8-6 record. That's not bad. But he had 18 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. Not great. And then with the 10, starting 8 but playing in 10, he went 3-5 there that last season as a QB of the Cleveland Browns. So overall, yeah, he was bound to just not be there anymore. Just couldn't really do much. Wasn't a man that really, he just didn't, not everyone's for this, so he just wasn't ready. He wasn't a NFL type of player, but he had some success in a way. I mean, he got paid for it, and he was able to play 4 years. So I mean, that's something to be accomplished about. It's just the line didn't help, the team didn't help, and just himself, he just couldn't play. the QB position, and he got to practice squads in Jacksonville and Green Bay, but nothing of his standards of being an NFL player. Number 8, Courtney Brown. What can I say about Courtney Brown other than that? Courtney Brown is definitely a character that's, just a great college player for sure. He dominated in Penn State, came to the draft in 2000, got drafted first overall by the Cleveland Browns, and from then on out, another Cleveland Brown mistake in a way, unfortunately. Cleveland drafted him really high, and he had a pretty good rookie year. He had around 69 tackles. He had a fumble recovery. He had 4.5 sacks. Not bad, but for the end, you're thinking he's going to get more sacks than that. Only problem was couldn't stay healthy, and when he was healthy, he really couldn't perform to his ability. And he had seasons where 2001 he only played in 5 games. 2004 he only played 2 games. 2002 he only played 11. He never was fully healthy. The only healthy season was his rookie year, and when he was healthy, like I said, his maximum he ever had was 6 sacks in a season for a defensive end. You got to have around 10, 11, 12, to be considered okay, but if you're like a superstar, you get around 16, 17, that's superstardom, but you want to get into the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range, but he just wasn't capable of being that kind of player, and unfortunately, maybe it was the wrong system, maybe it was the wrong coaching, but he unfortunately is on this list of people that are busts. Number 7, Steve Emtman. So Steve Emtman really was a legendary player at the University of Washington from a small town named Cheney. Growing up in Spokane and Cheney, pretty much went to Washington, was a completely just a great animal. He was so good in terms of how he played the game over there, to the point where Indianapolis Colts had to draft him first overall in the 1992 draft. From then on out, he would play for the Indianapolis Colts for 3 years. He would move on to Miami for 2 and DC for his last year. And you know what? He just was never the player that honestly people thought he would be. He just had too many injuries. Unfortunately, there was a time where he tore his patellar tendon in his right knee. One time he ruptured a disc in his neck in a collision. He literally played the entire game, though, until pretty much the end of the game. He couldn't close his fist because the nerve damage from the injury was that bad. And then pretty much with continuing pain, he had to be forced to undergo season-ending injury. And, he ended his career at the age of 27. Pretty much his career went from 22 to 27. Never got double-digit sacks. Never was the impact player that people thought he would be. And injuries killed him. And his stubbornness also killed him. If he would have just sat back and not played through that injury, I understand how tough you want to be. You want to be the toughest guy in the block. But sometimes the toughest guy in the block is the one that loses the most. Because one small thing and you're done. And that's what happened. So he's done now. And he ended his career at 27. Number 6, Kenneth Sims. Kenneth Sims was drafted first overall in 1982. Defensive end out of Texas. Pretty much, he's looked at as a guy that, pretty big dude, was going to fit pretty nicely in New England, was going to help the Pats become a better defense. And pretty much what they learned really quickly was, he wasn't that big of an impact player. Honestly, you just got to credit, again, injuries. Injuries win this one again. Injuries just didn't bode well for him, and unfortunately, he just wasn't the player that, they wanted him to be. Of course, you can't blame injuries all the way, because he may have had a couple injuries here and there, but for the most part, he was a healthy dude. He just couldn't play football. The only time he eclipsed 5.5 sacks, that was literally his maximum amount of sacks in a year. And that was with 13 games played. When he played a full season, he only had 3.5. So he just wasn't that type of impact player, and it unfortunately cost him really a bigger role on the team. So overall, yeah, he's unfortunately a bust. Number 5, Kijana Carter. Kijana Carter was the number 1 overall pick. Of course, they are all number 1 overall picks in the '95 draft. Cincinnati Bengals picked him up, and coming out of Penn State, another guy from Penn State over here, and he was looked at as going to be a very productive, very star-studded back, and really the biggest thing, in my honest opinion, was injuries, of course, and his career was cut short by an injury, pretty much the ACL. It's one of the worst injuries in football when it has to do something with knees. It's not great. It really isn't great at all. And, he's considered a bust, but it's kind of sad because, he had shoulder injuries, he's had wrist injuries, he's had right knee injuries, he's had a list of a lot of injuries. And he just was never the player that people thought he would be. So it's not because he couldn't play, it was because injuries literally derailed his career and killed his body. And you're just looking at, he never got to even reach 500 rushing yards in a year. Like, he was never that healthy, never able to produce the way he could have and should have. So, yeah, big bust, big bust, but due to injuries, not because of his lack of playing ability. Number 4, David Carr, pretty much the first overall pick in the Houston Texans franchise history, as well as the number 1 overall pick in the 2002 NFL Draft. David Carr was looked at as a fantastic football player, a guy that was going to lead this Texans team for the future. Of course, what I honestly thought was his senior season is his biggest season, so you can't really put everything out there that he was all the way, fantastic, And when you look at his rookie season, getting sacked 76 times, you're thinking, all right, well, they're not having that great of a team, so maybe that's the thing. But as seasons came on, and still, he just never was the quarterback that everyone wanted. And he became a bench player. He got a Super Bowl ring, though, with a part of the Giants. So, that's got to say something. And just overall, he just bounced in and out. Really was never a starter. Couldn't do many things. Didn't even pass for 15,000 yards. Had more interceptions than touchdowns in his career. He just could not play the game of football in the NFL professional league. And honestly, it cost him, because now he's known as one of the biggest busts in NFL history. Number 3, Walt Patulski. Walt Patulski is going to be named as one of the biggest busts, but, pretty much his entire potential was really there. Being the first overall pick for the Buffalo Bills in 1972, he was going to be that other wavelength of talent to carry this defense, and really may be able to be that guy. A New York native, was going to be in New York still. I know he was excited about it. The only problem is, like I said, he just never played to his potential. He just wasn't that great, didn't do that well as a ball player, and career-ending knee surgery pretty much ended any chance of getting to really be that star that he wanted. And again, you're looking at ending his career at 27. Now he's doing his own thing with the Boys and Girls Club, but overall, as a football player standpoint, just couldn't get it done. Like I said, the potential was sky high, but entered the league, and he just was never the same. So, number 2, John Matuszak. Pretty much one of the saddest things that probably is the reason why he was not the best football player that he could be. In the 80s, drugs were a big deal. In the 70s, drugs were a big deal, but drugs in the 70s through the 80s transition in sports was a big deal in that time, in that era. You had guys like Alzado, and you had Matuszak. You had some strong dudes up in there in Oakland, but a lot of them were probably either juicing, steroids, or, they were naturally strong, but there was a side effect that they were doing that was causing them to really die. Their heart literally pumping too much. And this is one of the cases. This guy was a pretty good football player. Not really the best. He played till he was 31. I still put him there as really his talent level compared to like Lyle Alzado and those kind of guys. You know, it wasn't there. He wasn't like that much of a stud player. I mean, looking at what he did, he was really good at helping the Raiders win 2 Super Bowls, and you know, he was big. He was big in terms of, you know, he could definitely, you know, he can definitely play football. You know, he was a big tough guy. He really was. But the only problem with him, part of the Raiders, which the Raiders had problems with in this time, was narcotics, was painkillers, was drugs, and his whole football career is the reason why it wasn't that great. He's not looked at as one of the best defensive ends because of drugs. He never was the potential of what he wanted to do, of how he was supposed to be when they picked him first overall in the 73 draft, you know. Looking at what he did, painkillers, narcotics, while playing football, being able to, you know, he was taking a lot of opiates, you know, he was drinking a lot, just a lot, and unfortunately, he died June 17th of 1989 due to an intoxication of proxafine, which is an opiate, and an accidental overdose of the prescription drug Darvocet. And pretty much it said that he had an enlarged heart, so his heart was way too big, and he just couldn't pump it anymore, and he died at 38 years old. Unfortunately, this is after his career, but during his career he did a lot. So his playing career literally is defined as don't do drugs, don't do any of that stuff. If you want to be an athlete, if you want to be a legend, it can kill you. So, and this is a very big case of literally it can kill you. Okay. Number 1, JaMarcus Russell. He is the big draft bust, and he's got no excuse. He did any drugs. There's no his injuries. It's just that he just didn't play well. I'm not going to say he sucked, because that's really mean to say to a football player or to any athlete to say they suck, because suck is when you're not good at something, and for him to get to the NFL means you have to be good at it. So anyone that thinks the athletes suck, say a different word that's not really too nice. You never played in the NFL. Why would you want to say they suck? You suck. You didn't even make it to the NFL. So, I mean, you know, that's just a word that I don't like. So I'm not going to use that on anyone. I just think he just didn't have the right system. Just didn't have the right proportion. I feel like he got drafted way too high. Again, coming out of a very big college in LSU. Drafted first in 2007. People thought he was going to be the next guy. A lot of people have speculation. Well, you know, everyone's calling him, he's the number 1 draft bust, you know. Oh, they didn't treat him right because he's black. Another thing that this country has a problem with is everyone gets offended. Just tell him he had a bad career. It's not because he's black that he had a bad career. It's because he just had a bad career. It's an individual. It's not a race thing. Okay, so everyone can just stop with that. That'd be really cool. I don't like it when people continue to bring up the race thing of why no one got signed, why the player didn't go there, why they didn't want the player. They didn't want the player because they didn't want the player, not because the player's black or the player's orange or the player's purple. It's because the player's not good enough for them. It doesn't fit their system. So that's why I hate ESPN. You guys are a cancer. You guys are the worst channel in the world. I hope you guys get super canceled. I hate all you people. You people are like the most hypocritical people in the world. And I hope you lose your job because you guys suck at literally analyzing sports. You guys know nothing about sports. All you guys know is about making this entertainment, making money. Oh, I'm going to make this controversy because they're black or something. You guys are pathetic, okay? Just go somewhere else. Go to an island. I don't want to see you. I hope when I go somewhere in my life, I don't want to see any of you guys. You guys are like pathetic. I'm never going to go to your channel. I'm never going to go and make an appearance. I have to sit there with an hour of you talking about,
Oh, why didn't he choose him? Is it because he's black? No, because he's a bad player. Okay, he doesn't fit. You guys are just pathetic. I never want to go to your show. I hope you guys never put me in your show. That's just one thing. Anyway, enough of that. He just wasn't a good player. Didn't do super well, unfortunately, and just Oakland was not. He was not ready to be a football player. He wasn't tough enough. He wasn't, good enough. Wasn't a QB material. That's pretty much it. If he went to a different team, maybe. But other than that, he just didn't. He didn't fit the bill of being an NFL player. Either or. Unfortunately, I don't like ever saying that they're the best, the worst bust, or the worst player in the NFL. I just think he just never excelled. So, number one, unfortunately, but yeah.